Welcome everyone. As Nikhil said, today I'm going to talk a little bit about setting up tracking and drawing conclusions from analytics in Siteimprove. One way we do that is by providing a gap consultation. Gap consultations are an offering that we've had for a few years now, and essentially we work with agencies to analyze their site performance in Siteimprove and make recommendations. As Nikhil said, I'm Amanda Zayas. I'm a lead content strategist on DGA's Digital Services and Solutions team, and I help agencies create more effective content. Here's a brief look at what I'm going to cover today. We'll go through the components of a gap consultation and how you can perform one yourself. So when we talk about a gap consultation or a gap analysis, what do we mean? First, just for a quick review, if anybody's not up to speed, the Siteimprove gap score, you'll also sometimes see it referred to as the DCI score, is the average of your scores for QA, quality assurance, accessibility, and search engine optimization, or SEO. It's an assigned score to assess the user experience of your website, and it's a score assigned between 1 and 100, and the minimum score for government agencies, the benchmark, is 80. So then what exactly is the gap consultation? It's a multi-part analysis of the strengths and opportunities for your website. It's comprised of some of these factors, so baseline analytics, which is where you are now, kind of setting a benchmark, organization and user goals, where you want to go, organizational and user pain points, what's standing in your way, SMART goals, quantifiable, well-defined goals to work toward, suggested strategy, how we're going to suggest that you get there, and success metrics and timeline. So how you'll track your progress and when you want to hit certain milestones. So we touch on all of this during our consultation. It's all part of our analysis. We then summarize our relevant findings and make actionable recommendations based on our analysis. So we typically divide our findings into 3 major sections. So major issues and trends with your gap score, site analytics, which is a more quantitative look at your site performance, and user experience best practices, where we take a qualitative assessment of your content at just a brief high-level overview. And you can use our method to perform your own gap consultation analysis. And it's a way for you to assess your content and make appropriate changes. It's also a useful starting point so that you can come to us with specific goals and requests that we can then work together to solve. First, it's helpful to understand a little bit more about how gap scores work and the logic behind them. This is a major takeaway that I want you to remember. Increasing your gap score is not a goal, not on its own. So it's a little bit, I like to liken it to it's a little bit like losing weight. So if sometimes when somebody wants to lose weight, they'll have a specific goal weight in mind. And you ask them why, and they'll say, well, it's a number I saw on a chart, or that's the weight I was in high school, or my friend is about my size and that's what she weighs. But a healthier, more productive question might be, what do you want to do? So do you want to run a marathon? Do you want to go on a big hiking and camping trip with your friends next year? Do you want to lower your cholesterol? So instead of being focused on a specific number, in that case, you're focused on a purpose. Your main goal is to have a website with excellent user experience. And if you do that, a good gap score should naturally follow. So keep the focus on helping users achieve their goals quickly and easily. Understand the reasons behind the recommendations Siteimprove is making. That's really important. So for example, we'll have agencies come to us and they'll see an issue of low word count on pages, low text to code ratio. So there's not a lot of copy on their pages, and that's coming up in Siteimprove. And we've had agencies come to us and say, okay, well, where can I add copy on these pages? Siteimprove doesn't want you to stuff a bunch of unnecessary copy on your pages. That's not why they're highlighting it. In fact, we want copy to be clear and succinct. Siteimprove highlights this because these pages may not be necessary. So they want you to think, can this be combined with similar content? Can this content be archived? Is it really needed? So because we don't want users to have to click around to several pages just to do one thing or find out about one topic. That's the intention of that recommendation. So we want you to really think about what is the intention behind the recommendation, not just the recommendation on the list. User experience should always be more important than the points you're going to gain. So again, we've had agencies where, they'll get dinged for having older documents or files, but a lot of agencies need those. We have agencies with documents that are 3, 5, even 10 years old, and it's still relevant, it's still active. We have agencies that have 10-year plans, so they really need those. Those users need those on the site. That's not really an issue that we're worried about. So one site was worried about that, one agency was worried about that on their site. They were getting dinged for that. But when we looked through their site, we said, that's not really your issue. We're seeing some accessibility and usability issues. Now, it was technically accessible, but it didn't, it technically met the standards, but it wasn't as usable for the users. So yes, maybe archiving the files would gain you more points, but that's not really the problem. The usability and accessibility issues were the things that were really impacting users. And then follow the intention of the recommendations. Think about the best practices that it's trying to reinforce as opposed to just going down that checklist and not really thinking too much about it. And we want you to take that enthusiasm and focus it on the right things so that you're using your time the most efficiently. So when you log in, you'll probably see a list of issues like this, and it can be really overwhelming and you might not know where to start. We have agencies ask us on the help desk all the time, what do I need to concentrate on? So, because you only have so much time and so many resources, so you really have to use that wisely. When agencies ask us what issues to prioritize fixing, these are the 4 things we tell them to consider. So first, look at what you can control. So look for the category, and you can see that here, to see who's responsible, and some things are going to be things like technical issues that you can't really do a lot about. So they may be things like mobile speed or some redirect issues that's not something you can really touch. Think about impact versus effort. So, and a few issues might be affecting hundreds of pages. We see this all the time. So if you just take an hour or two to fix maybe 12 issues, that could affect 100 pages. And then think about what is the lift. So how much time, expertise, or staff do you have to put behind resolving an issue? And then what's the level of impact that that issue is going to have on users? So you can ask yourself, is the amount of lift worth the impact on the users? Then prioritize issues that impact multiple categories. I think QA, SEO, and accessibility are not in their silos. They're all interconnected. They're all interwoven. One affects another, affects another. So there might be issues that are affecting your score in one area that affect your score in another. So addressing those overlapping issues are going to help your site in multiple ways, and it will also help your score in multiple ways. And then prioritize user experience over points gained in Siteimprove. Again, think about the user impacts of the issue listed. If there are 2 issues, for example, one that will gain you more points and one that will gain you fewer points, but it'll have a more positive effect on users, always go for the one that's going to help users more. Because if you sacrifice user experience to gain a slightly higher gap score, you've defeated the intended purpose of the gap score. Now, if you feel there is an issue that is unfairly affecting your score, in some cases you can dismiss it within Siteimprove. We recommend that you really use this sparingly, treat it as a last resort, not a primary solution. If you do dismiss an issue, this is what we recommend. So only dismiss an issue if it is genuinely incorrect, as in an issue is being flagged where there isn't one. Always explain why you're dismissing an issue in the field that's provided there in Siteimprove. If you notice an issue keeps coming up, contact Siteimprove support. They may be able to filter it out of future crawls, and your feedback can also be important to help them make improvements for future iterations of their platform, because they're always making changes. They like to hear that feedback. And then just give it time. Siteimprove runs crawls roughly every 5 days, and it can take multiple cycles to see changes. So just give it a little bit of patience. Now we move on to what Siteimprove refers to marketing analytics within the platform. These are just typical site analytics that you'd see on platforms like Google or Adobe. Siteimprove is the only analytics platform that DSGA supports. It's included with every GovHub site. You already have it. And we like it because it provides a wide range of performance analytics. So a few things to always keep in mind when you're analyzing your data, that numbers alone are meaningless. You have to look at a mix of quantitative and qualitative information to get a full picture and draw conclusions. Think about what metrics best reflect your progress toward the goals you've set, and don't just think about your goals, think about what the users are trying to achieve. And consider all the contextualizing factors. So the content itself, the time of year, recent events, what's going on that could be affecting user behavior. As Jasmine pointed out, we saw a big spike near tax day. So what's going on that could be affecting user behavior? And the level of incentive and frustration tolerance for the user. So if somebody needs to do something, they need to register or get a license for work, that's something that they have a high incentive to do and figure out. They're going in with a lot of education, whereas other users might get frustrated more easily, they might not know as much, and then they're gonna default to, I'm just gonna call and email the first name that I see on this page or in the site. All of that is going to affect your outcome, so try to keep that in mind. And a few numbers on a page are not going to tell you the whole story. So one way to track progress towards your goals is by setting up KPIs within Siteimprove. KPIs are a good way to measure overall goals. So we have also key metrics. Those are specific actions that users take that can measure your progress toward a goal. So a KPI can have multiple key metrics. You can see here that I've taken several key metrics, which are the click-through rates of multiple pages, and I've tagged them under one KPI to see if we're increasing the amount of users who click through to the intended next step for one particular category of content, and that's all grouped together. So developing KPIs is a really great way to start thinking about how you can translate your organizational objectives into measurable goals. So when we talk about looking at the big picture and not just one or two numbers, these are some of the metrics that we look at in conjunction to start telling us a larger story. So anything here, though, if you see with an asterisk, that does have to be enabled on Siteimprove. You can often do that yourself, or if you're having any issues, you can contact the support desk. We can help you enable that. Most and least popular pages, it's important to remember that that does not mean most and least successful. Some content may not get a lot of views, but it may be very important to a small key audience. So things like press releases or information for legislators who determine the budget for your agency. And then some content just has to be up for legal compliance. We run into that all the time. So we want to look at traffic sources, kind of where that traffic is coming from. Are users finding what they're looking for, or are they leaving because they couldn't? Bounce rates will tell you that. Are they taking the intended next step? Behavior tracking can help you determine that. Where are they scrolling and clicking? Behavior maps can show you that. If you want to take a closer look at the user paths that visitors are taking, consider setting up user journeys. It's like a more in-depth version of behavior tracking that you can customize. So you enter in where you want users to start and where you want them to end, and it will start creating a flow map that tracks user paths. Then you have funnels, which are a little bit like user journeys, but they're a little bit more in-depth. So there you define each step in an intended path and track completion rates, as well as you can see where users are dropping off. So funnels are best for when there is only one intended path and one desired outcome, like completing a multi-step application form or registering for an event. So when we look at multiple factors in conjunction, we get a clearer picture about user behavior. But of course, you have to look at the content itself to really draw conclusions. So for example, let's look at a service page we have up on georgia.gov. This is a real service page. You can go to our site and you can see this right now. We get about 1 million visits a month on georgia.gov. So 3,400 visits for the first 4 months of the year is really not a lot. It's actually about 0.1% of traffic and number 201 on the list of our most popular pages. But as we start to look more closely at other analytics, we see that it has a low bounce rate. So users are staying on the page, which tells us this is probably the content they were looking for. Almost 2/3 of traffic comes from external search. So we know SEO for this page is strong. Almost 2/3 of users are taking the intended next step. So when we actually look at the content and we look at the page, we see that this big CTA button at the top is probably doing its intended job. And when we think about this content, when we actually look at what it's discussing, school performance reports, we realize that this is only going to be relevant to a small audience, because think about it, they have to live in Georgia, they have to have school-age kids, those kids have to be going to public school, they might be moving or deciding where to enroll their children, so there's a decision or a change going on, and that's not going to be very many people. So yes, this isn't a very popular page, but relevant audiences are finding what they need, so we would consider that successful. Finally, let's look at some more qualitative aspects of a gap analysis. So user experience is a broad-ranging topic that focuses on how users move through and interact with your content. When you're assessing user experience, look at the content through your user's eyes. So what is their goal? Are they in a stressful situation? How strong is the incentive to complete their task? How much knowledge do they have going in? Is there a clear path laid out for them? Is content easy to find and understand? So we often recommend giving people in your organization who didn't work on the website a task to complete and then ask them about their feedback. That's a really rudimentary form of user testing that you can go do within your own organization yourself. Think about the entire user journey that a user needs to take to get information or complete a task, and present clear calls to action, like you saw on that last page, that aren't competing with each other on the page. So you see there's one big clear button, there's not a bunch of different options all at the same level kind of competing with each other. And then conversely, a lot of users, this was mentioned before, a lot of users come in through external search and just go to an internal page on the website. So they're bypassing the home page and the main navigation altogether. So you have to think about, if this is the only page that they're viewing, is there enough context on that page if they haven't seen anything else? And now with the rise of AI, users are going to be interacting with your content without ever coming to your website. So your information will be pulled by AI-powered search. You can see that on Google already, ChatGPT, chatbots. So think about, how will this content look if it's pulled out of the context of not just your website, but out of the context of the page that it's on? And then think about your copy. So is it properly formatted? Is it easy to understand? Is it as close to a junior high reading level as you can possibly get? Are you using small paragraphs and headers to make copy scannable? And then of course, DSGA is always here to help. Our content and UX teams work with agencies on a variety of projects. So really lean into our experience. So wrapping it up, how can you use this information to get started? We will be introducing a learning module where you can, we take you step by step through the process of creating your own gap analysis. And this will have a lot more detail on how to set up these analytics and this tracking in Siteimprove. The Siteimprove Help Center is really robust. I always recommend that as a resource. They have great information, they provide context, it's easy to understand. I always recommend checking that out. Siteimprove, as we mentioned, does have their own support, so you can submit tickets there. Our DSGA knowledge base has a lot of useful information and best practices, and we're always trying to update that with relevant information. And of course, if you have a specific question, you can contact the DSGA support desk. So doing your own gap analysis is useful for you, but it's also a good starting point for a discussion with us. It highlights specific issues and helps you come to us better prepared for a conversation about your needs. So these are just some of the services that we offer to improve your website. Today you'll actually hear a little bit more about user testing from Julie. That's a great talk, definitely stick around for that. And every engagement looks a little bit different, so we can develop a custom solution for you based on your needs and your goals. So here's what I want to leave you with. Focus on creating a website with excellent user experience, and your gap score should improve as well. When deciding what to fix, prioritize tasks that require minimal effort but have a bigger impact on users. Look at a combination of analytics and the actual content to determine if your goals are being met. Set SMART goals and establish a schedule of regular check-ins, whether that's monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever works for you. But remember that changes take time to take effect, so be patient. And here's how to get in touch if you'd like to have a conversation. And then if you have any questions, you can scan the QR code and submit it. I'll just give that a second. And we will answer them in the Q&A session later today. Just gonna give that like 10 seconds. All right, hope you caught that. So thank you so much for your time. And the next session will be Orchard Component Library, Accessibility on Easy Mode with Kat.